Today, I'm going to tell you what your dad and your uncles will never tell you, and that is that the seller never pays the buyer's closing costs. Now, that seems like a crazy thing to say, but hear me out. Before you can understand what I just said, you first have to understand what closing costs are. Closing costs are just fees for services that are required to consummate a real estate transaction. Both the buyer and the seller have their own set of closing costs because they are the same in the sense that they are fees for services required to close the deal, but they are different in the sense that they are different services. Now, if you're a first time home buyer or you're somebody who's purchasing a home, you're probably going to get tons of advice from all the people that love you. And the advice is good in heart, but not always very good advice. A common thing that a lot of people hear is to make the seller pay your closing costs. Well, as we all know, there is no such thing as a free lunch, and the seller is never going to pay your closing costs. Well, how it actually works is the buyer is going to finance their closing costs into their mortgage. You can think of it as the seller is paying your closing costs, but at the end of the day, the seller is just negotiating what they are going to receive at the end, what we call the net sales price. So, for example, if you're purchasing a $100,000 house, let's say, to make that math easy, and you're asking the seller to pay $3,000 of your closing costs. What you're actually offering is $97,000 as it is perceived by the seller. So the seller is going to negotiate based on what that net number is, which is the purchase price minus how much you're asking them to pay. And they're just factoring it in and working it into the deal. Now, what typically happens when a buyer wants the seller to concede some of the purchase price is they will actually inflate the sales price. So that same $100,000 house, the seller might counter your offer at $103,000 and offer to concede or pay your closing costs. Again, all you've done is roll them into your mortgage. At the end of the day, the closing costs aren't free. The seller's not going to pay your closing costs. They're going to negotiate a net sales price that makes sense for them. So if you're considering structuring an offer in which you are going to ask the seller to pay your closing costs, always be mindful that what the seller is going to care about is the net price. So if you want to offer them $100,000, just start off by offering them $103,000 and ask for a $3,000 credit. If you want to offer them $97,000, then you can go ahead, offer them $100,000 and ask for a $3,000 credit. Either way, you're going to be rolling them into your deal or rolling them into your mortgage. So that's it. Always remember, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Somebody's always going to pay for the closing costs, and the seller has their own closing costs, and they're a heck of a lot more than the buyer's closing costs, if I'm being honest. So if you like this video, give it a like and a share, and as always, thanks for watching.